I'd start by presenting my screen. So if you guys can see my screen, please give me a thumbs up or a text on the chat box. Okay, cool. So you might have guessed I have actually shifted from Firebase Studio to Android Studio because I was having some issues with Firebase Studio, but the instructions remain the same and the UI is very similar too. So I don't think you guys will have any kind of problems regarding that. So without much ado, I would just like to give you an overview of the application that we are building, that we are finishing today. So here's the list of books that I've added. So as you can see, you can categorize them as completed or reading or a wish list. And when you press the add button or the floating action button, you're greeted with this simple looking form that asks you for the book title, the author's name, and finally the completion status or the status of the current book. So is this okay with everyone? Like, app is okay so far? Then I move on to the next feature. Okay, so I guess it is okay for everyone. So now moving on to the final feature, which is the searching and filtering UI. So if you see closely, we have three different options on top: reading, completed, and wishlets. So if I press on any of these buttons, I will get only the books that are categorized as the said category. So if I want only the books that I'm reading, I can click on reading and get the list. If I want ones that are wishlisted, so as you can see, I can wishlist them. I can also delete them from the list. If I press delete, it gets deleted. Again, if I press delete, book is deleted. And finally, we have the search option. So if I search for the Great Gatsby, I will be shown the exact book. So that's it with the book demo. Now, moving on to the code for the actual app. Last day, we had taken a look at the basic UI of how we can achieve that. So this on top is your default app bar. Underneath that, we have a search bar and a list of chips, as we call them in Flutter, for filtering the book list. Now, what I've done is, since we are storing three different types of values or three different values in total inside one particular book, so it makes sense for us to create some kind of a class so that we can reuse the template again and again. For all those who don't really know what a class is, it's basically, you can consider it as a blue. So for those who don't really know what a class is, in simple words, you can consider class as a blueprint of sorts. So you might have a class called car, and that might define some basic properties of a car. For example, it has four wheels, it can accelerate, it can decelerate, it has a certain color, a certain number of seats, and you can reproduce other objects or other cars. And the only way that you can be sure that what you have produced is a car is by satisfying all the qualities of the class. So essentially, a class allows you to store certain kinds of data together along with some functions associated with those data. So in here, I've created a class called a book, and the book will definitely have a title, an author, and the status parameter. And finally, we have also added a boolean value called isFavorite, which you can see in action over here. So once you click the heart icon, it turns red and the book is marked as a favorite. Okay. Now, moving on to the home screen, let's get into a bit more details about each of the widgets. So as you can see, we have the column widget over here, and on top we have the filter chip layout, and underneath we have the list view dot builder, and inside the list view we just have a simple book card widget. So now going deeper into all of these custom widgets, let's first start with the book card. So as you can see, the book card returns a card, and I've configured some properties. For example, I've considered a margin between the two ends and on top and bottom. So with the symmetrical constructor, we have defined a vertical value and a horizontal value, which when I change, you can see it looks very different. So if I change vertical to 32, the cards become considerably shorter. Cool. So next up, going in a bit more details, we have a widget called a list tile. Now the list tile is nothing but a row that exposes some predefined styles. For example, it gives you access to a title parameter, which as you can see is the book title, right? Book.title. Then we have the subtitle parameter, which allows you to define any kind of subtitle that you want for the book. For us, it's gonna be the name of the author and the completion status. So as you can see, we have the book.author as a text widget, and we also have a chip with a label as book.status.label. Now, the code for this particular app is already given to you guys. It's there in the GitHub repository. So I encourage everyone to head over to GitHub and take a look at the code for themselves after the seminar, after the workshop, and hit us up if you have any queries regarding the code. So now, getting into a few more styling details, you can see that I have added something called a stadium border to the chip, which is nothing but this nicely rounded layout that you see inside the card chip, inside the status chip. All right, awesome. And finally, to end it off, we have the trailing parameter, which just means that the end icons or the end widget that we are going to show in the row. So I have designed two different icon buttons. So just basic buttons with icons instead of text. And I have inserted the icon is favorite. Now consider this. So I want the icon, the heart icon, to be of gray in color and outlined when the book is not a favorite, and I want it to be red and filled when the book is favorite. So I've added this condition where I check if the book is a favorite question mark, then I display icons.favorite. Otherwise, I display icons.favorite border. So you can see in this gutter over here that we are shown the two different icons that we are using. And finally, inside the on pressed, we are again invoking a set state, and we are just setting the is favorite value of the book to the opposite of what it is currently. So if the book was previously a favorite, so if previously the value was true, then we'll set it to false and vice versa. There it is. So I hope this is understandable to everyone. We have talked about set state before, and we have talked about how the widget gets rebuilt when the function set state is triggered. Similarly, we have the delete icon, as you can see over here, and the delete icon has an on-pressed option too, which we are using to just remove the particular entry from the list. So using the function from the list dot called remove at, we supply the index of the book and we are able to remove it from the book list. So is this much clear? I mean, has everyone understood what we really did with the card widget? If so, give me a thumbs up. If not, please give your questions on the chat box or open your mic and talk. Okay, so we have one reaction so far. That's it. All right then. So moving forward, the next widget or the next UI feature that we are going to tackle is the chip layout on the top. So this is for filtering out your books using the status parameter. So you can either see the list of all the books that you're reading, or you can see the list of all the wishlisted books that you have, or maybe you want to see the list of books that you have completed. So that's how you can use the filtering feature. Now for making that, we have used a very simple widget called wrap. Now wrap is a widget that allows you to display a list of other widgets, but whenever the space or the horizontal space gets less or becomes insufficient, wrap will allow Flutter to shift the widgets or the overflowing widgets into the next line. So that's something really handy that you might need all the time when displaying filtering options or when displaying certain status chips. So instead of maybe one status chip, we had four. So that so we might not really have enough space to display four chips. And in those kind of situations, the wrap widget comes really in handy. So moving on, we have to now display the different chips, right? So you'll see that we have used a widget called choice chip. Now, choice chip is again given by Flutter. It's one of those predefined, beautiful looking components that you can use in your application. What's important is for us to understand what's happening over here. That is, how are we really deciding which chips to show? So that is being done using a map function. So we are taking the book status and we are mapping it to these widgets. So the status, so the syntax reads like dot map, and it accepts a function. It accepts a function of a particular object and returns a particular widget. So I'll type that again over here. Takes in a function with the particular object as an argument and returns a widget for each item or each object. I think this is pretty explanatory for us. So it takes in a function with a particular object as an argument and it returns a widget for each object, like we have done over here. So since book status has only three items, which is reading, completed, and wish list, we have displayed only three chips. Now, if, for example, I decide to add another property or another value, I can basically do this, which is replicate the code. So let's give it at red. And similarly for this, second please, just add the word favorite. So if I now refresh, you will see that I have a different widget called favorite, a different chip called favorite. Now, how does this happen is because we had the map function, so it takes in all of the values and spits out this beautiful looking UI. Let's just remove this for now. Remove this for now, and okay, cool. Now that we are done with the filter chips layout, we'll just move on to the text field and finish off with the entire UI for this application. So now going into the actual top bar, you will see that inside the app bar, we have a property called bottom, which basically denotes what kind of widgets or how much space I should allocate to the bottom part of an app bar. Now, I have defined it as 68 because from experimenting, I found out that 68 is a good height for the text bar or the text field. And I've given it a child property or child widget, which is build search bar. Now, going to the build search bar method, you can see that it returns a widget and it takes no arguments as such. And the widget returned over here is actually a text field. Now, the text field is again one of those widgets that we have already seen and understand very well. So it requires a controller for it to work, and it requires some kind of a decoration parameter. So I have defined the decoration as an outline input border, which I can actually change, and the UI will change accordingly. So I am a fan of bordered text fields, so I set it to that. I've also defined a prefix icon, which is this search icon, and also a hint text. As you can see over here, we are displayed search books. If I want to change that, I can write search books by name or author. And when I press this, you see the text has changed and we now have a more descriptive search bar hint. The last thing that we must actually pay attention to on the text field is the onChanged function. Now we have seen last day that the onChange function is triggered whenever the value of the text field changes. So when we read the function, you'll see that we are triggering a set state and setting a particular variable called search query to the value. So if I type in if I type in V in the text field, you see the search query variable has been updated to V, and we are getting all the books that have the text V in it, in either the title or the author's name. Okay. All right, cool. So with this, we are actually done with the basic UI of the entire application. And finally, we have the build floating action button, which shows the add book dialog. We have designed this previously, so I'm not going to get into a lot of details about this. But simply said, we have two different text fields for the book title and the book author. And finally, we have a drop down form field, or we can place it as drop down button for that matter. and that just accepts what kind of status that we have. So I was actually fond of the form field. I'm going to keep it at that. Yeah. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details about the drop down form field. If you want to get more details about that, you might want to visit the Flutter documentation. It's available at docs.flutter.dev and read about this particular widget. It's a very interesting widget and it's very helpful too. So finally, we have the actions parameter of the dialog. And over here, we are just displaying two different buttons. One is a text button called cancel, and one is an add button or an elevated button with the text add. We have already seen the functionality of the entire form beforehand. So I'll just expand it a little bit so that you can understand. So as you can see, we had the title controller and we had the author controller and we had the dialog status. So we are creating a new object of the book class and adding it to our book list. That's what it's doing when we press the add button. And if you look closely, this entire functionality is wrapped in a set state. So that's essentially telling Flutter whenever you add a new book, the list or the UI should rebuild itself to instantly show the changes in the application. So if I add the book title, maybe my favorite book and author is I don't know, and the status is wishlist. So if I add that and I go into over here, you will see that my favorite book is added in the list. So now we are sure that everything works perfectly and that everything is completely in order. The list is updating dynamically and the UI looks pretty decent. After doing all of this, finally, we'll just use the navigator.pop function to close the widget, to close the dialog. Now, in between over here, you might have guessed we have written a function called clear form, which just takes in all of the controllers and clears them using a built-in method called clear. And the dialog status is set to null. Cool. So up until now, I hope everyone is very clear with the UI and the functionality. So if you have understood, give me a thumbs up. And if not, shoot your queries or text them in the chat box, and I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so since we are not getting any responses, okay, sure. Yes, it is possible for us to do that, but that's a little out of the scope. But if time permits, we'll try to do that definitely. Okay, so it's basically just that you have to display a dialog box with the details of that particular model, so of that particular class. So if you are trying to access the fifth element of the book list array, you will just use book list and 4 inside the third brackets to access the fifth element, and then change the value of that particular object. So that's how you do it. We'll come to that if we have time. Otherwise, Otherwise, I'll just have it added to the code and you guys can see it from the repository itself. All right, cool. So finally, the only thing that we are left with is to actually see how the searching and sorting, searching and filtering logic works. So for that, we have written a function called get filtered books or something like that. Let me just get to it. Yes. So we have written a function called get filtered books, and look closely, we are returning a list of book objects from the function. So that we are sure that whenever we are calling the get filtered books function, it returns us with an explicit list of books that match the search criteria. I hope everyone was able to understand what I said right now. If so, please give me a thumbs up or drop me an emoji on the chat. Okay, so basically, we have written a function called get filtered books, and that returns a list of books. All right, so it returns a list of books explicitly. So it returns a list of book explicitly. That ensures that whenever we are searching or we are filtering for some specific book, we only get the books that have that particular search query or are associated with that particular status. Does that make more sense? All right, cool. So getting into the actual logic now, Flutter conveniently provides us with a function called where. Now, once you hover over the where function, you will see that we have a very nicely written documentation which reads creates a new lazy iterable with all elements that satisfy the predicate test. Now, this is just technical jargon for saying that the where function returns a list of items such that a particular condition is met. That makes sense, right? Okay. So now that you see, we have defined two different variables called matches status and matches search. Now the matches status is pretty simple. We are just checking if the status filter is null or if the book status is actually equal to the status filter. Now keep in mind, whenever we are clicking any of these chips, we are setting the status filter to a particular value. So if I press reading, I have successfully set the value of status filter to reading. And then I can just cross check whether the status variable of that particular book is equal to the status filter or is equal to the status that I want to see. Similarly, the matches search variable just takes in the title of the book and the author of the book and uses the contains function to check if the particular value or if the particular query is inside that particular search result. So does that make sense? Okay, awesome. And finally, after checking all these two variables, we return a list of books, including both the ones that satisfy match status and match search. So that's how we are ensuring that whenever searching for a book, for example, to kill a mockingbird, it respects what status filter I have added. So as you can see, To Kill a Mockingbird is a completed book. And since I'm searching from the list of all books, that is, there's no status parameter associated now, we are getting the item. But if we select reading, which does not contain the book To Kill a Mockingbird, we'll get an empty list. We'll get a list of no books. So that is because we have added the matches status or matches search into the matches status and matches search into the final result. Does this make sense, or do you want me to repeat, guys? Okay, awesome. So now that we are actually done with all the functionality and all the code, we can move over to what Shlok suggested, which is editing the books. For that, we can just define, or we can copy the function add book dialog. Okay, and we can just write, we can just rename it as show edit book dialog, and it will take in a book, call it book. Yeah. So I guess this makes sense to everyone right now. Edit, edit book. So we are adding that as the title. Now, before actually moving on to these fields, what we'll do is we'll edit the values of these three or these three statuses or controllers according to our book. So inside here, we'll just convert it and we'll write, okay, cool. So as you can see, we have set the title controller.text to the book title, and we have set the author controller.text to the book author. And finally, we have set the dialog status to the book.status variable. So this ensures that the book that we are, so this ensures that whichever book we are trying to edit is the one that we are using. And secondly, it ensures that the form is filled with the existing data that we can edit. So now it's time to actually use this particular function. So how do we do that? Now we can come up to the card, build book card, and we can wrap this card with a widget called a gesture detector. Now, a gesture detector is nothing but a wrapper around any widget, and it exposes some essential touch gestures. So things like clicking or double clicks, or even drag and hold or hold and drag. So gesture detector gives us this all of these different interactions. So as you can see, on long press cancel, on tap, on double tap. So we are going to use the on long press function and just return this show edit book dialog. And so that's it. That's all that we have to do. So let's try it. Okay. Now, as you can see, once I long press any card, I'm greeted with this beautiful dialog like before with all of the details pre-filled. Now, if I want to change any of these, and so maybe let's add it to completed and add. So as you can see, I have. Wait, I think there's some error here. Cool. So we'll try that again. Heartfully, 1, 2, 3. So okay, my author, my fave book, and add this to completed. So inside completed, I hope we have. Okay, there it is. We have To Kill a Mockingbird 2, and we have my favorite book. Now, the next question that remains is, why hasn't the original title disappeared or been edited? So as sorry. So as you can see, To Kill a Mockingbird, the book To Kill a Mockingbird still exists and is still as a wish list. However, we also have the To Kill a Mockingbird 2 and the other book that we added. So that's not really desirable. So for that, we must revisit our function show edit book dialog and check what's happening. So everything is all right till now. The form accepts and edits the values perfectly, but inside set state, you'll see that it's calling the add function and not the actual, not editing the actual objects. So what we can do over here is we can take in an integer called index. We can take in an integer at index, integer called index, and we can use the edit or okay. So we can browse over all the properties that the book list provides us, and going down we can select the element using element.index, and we can just set it to the new book. Okay, now we have some issues with the code. So what are they? So it says that the prefix book list can't be used here because it's shadowed by a local declaration. Try renaming either the prefix or the local declaration. Okay, so what the hell is that? We don't really know, right? So let's try a different approach. So we can use this. So we can use this kind of an approach. Okay, what the hell? We can rename this variable. Let's rename it to editable book, and we can set it as booklist.element at index equals to book. There's some issue. I myself have messed up some syntax over here. Let's just add this. Okay, cool. I think this will fix it. We can go up to the actual declaration. Over here, add editable book equals to book and index equals to index. Okay, cool. So in here, the error actually still persists. So we have to come up with a different approach to this. Now, off the top of my mind, I can't really think of an approach right now. Maybe, maybe there is some other better way to do it. So we can do a little bit of research about that. So the best way, according to me, to learn any technology is to actually read a bit more about it. So maybe just go on to the internet and search the particular error that we are getting, or let's just hover over here, and there it is. We have copied the error, and then we can affix it with Flutter. Since Flutter is a very widely adopted technology, so the developer experience or the number of developers who have faced the problem that you're facing right now is likely very high. So you must always search your errors before going into ChatGPT and just pasting fix this, because that will make you a better learner. It will teach you some more things that ChatGPT or any of the other AI LLMs can't. As you can see that okay, we have the similar kind of error. Okay, so since we can't really find any direct approaches to fix this, let's leave it for now. I'll definitely conduct my own research about this and update it in the repo. But the concept actually remains very similar. So I hope this entire thing was understandable. And again, a lapse on my end for not doing my homework. But yeah, there is a way to do it. You will just have to research it a bit. Does that work for everyone? Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. And give both. Okay then. So I guess that's it actually. We don't really have anything else to do. The app is complete. We have all the functionalities in place, and the code is also uploaded to GitHub. For all those who don't have the code, here's here's the code repo. Okay, so I'll just paste in the GitHub link for the particular app that we have built into the chat. All right, awesome. So please check the chat, guys. You'll get the code for the entire application. And yeah, that should be it. We are officially done with building our first app. I hope you guys had fun in the journey, and you guys will definitely go ahead and modify this app as you want. With that said, I'd like to give it back to Shoptoshida for announcing the other things regarding GDG and the goodies.
Yeah. So hello everyone and good evening. So I think in these 3 days you learned a little bit about app development and about Flutter how to do it. So you built an prototype of a book catalog type of app, and so what to do now? So you built a basic app with just search functionalities and some categorize adding a book and viewing the book. But now what can you do that you can add more features, like if you want to suppose you can think about saving this in locally or in a database, connecting with a database or something, anything you want, you can add one or two features onto this. You can beautify the UI, anything you like. So after that, you can submit your repo or the app you have built. You can make a YouTube video about it, that how you have done this, and what things or what features you have added in your app. And you can submit this in a Google form. We will circulate the form by tonight in our group. So after you submit this, you will be eligible for a competition that will be means there the your submissions will be judged by our team and the team from Flutter Kolkata, and after that you will be eligible for some goodies. So yeah, that's the announcement I had. Anything you want to add, Subhanu?
No, not really. So we encourage you guys to explore a little more about Flutter. Go on to the documentation and read a little bit about how Flutter works. And then, yeah, submit your apps and you stand a chance to win some really exciting goodies from the Flutter team.
Yep. And in the meantime, if you have any problem, you can anytime reach out at Shubhanu or anyone in our community group. Yep. I think someone has a.
Okay, Shlok. So basically, you can start off with any kinds of app. I mean, just the way that I really got started with app development was that I found a problem in my daily life that I thought could have been solved using an app, and I built one for it. So, if the best way to learn and make products is to come up with solutions to problems that exist for you, yeah, I would suggest that's the way to go. Think of a problem, or if you have a problem that you think can be solved using an app, try building it. And for this particular competition, just modify the app that we built, add a feature or two, research a bit, and that would be it for the competition.
Yep. So let's pack up for tonight. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Good night. You can leave the meet now.